with Nick Konkle, who is the lead gameplay designer on the Elder Scrolls Online. Thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
So for those who don't know, what does a lead gameplay designer do?
Well, mostly it has to do with combat and with progression, sort of how the character fights monsters, what the monsters do, but also movement, controls, camera behavior. So, I don't know, sort of mostly combat, but then a few things thrown in there.
Right, so that's basically curating a lot of the experience of what people will have with Elder Scrolls Online, yeah. So I'm going to start with a very tough question. There's a lot of MMOs out there, and a lot of MMOs that have fallen over. Obviously, the Elder Scrolls is a very big franchise, but what are the other things that you think are going to keep it rolling?
You are starting with a tough question.
Yeah, I know.
No, I'll tell you what. In the area of gameplay, there's a lot of things across the whole game, but specifically to my area, what we have is a really sort of responsive, action-y control scheme, and combat system in general, right? I think MMOs, especially sort of the last batch of them, have been very rotation-oriented or sort of like timer-oriented, which made a lot of sense for that generation of hardware, but we've really moved it to the point where you have tactics, right? You respond to what people do. The pace is fast enough, the latency is low enough that we can actually achieve that right now. And as a result, we can have a combat between two players or a monster and a player that is responsive and interactive, which is really, I think, the big thing we're going to bring with our combat system that's so exciting.
Right on. Well, speaking of combat with other players, what can you tell us about the PvP sections?
Well, we're not talking too much about the details, but I can tell you the general philosophy.
That'll be good.
We want the largest battles you've ever seen, ever. They are mind-blowingly large. When you get certain, and just a quick anecdote about that, right?
Sure.
The very first time we really did a scale test, and we were sitting there at 200 people, all going each other, cresting a hill, right?
Wow.
And the scream of that, right? Like just actually seeing 200 people all on screen, all fighting is so insane and fun, right?
Yeah.
And the battle is so large scale, and that's really what I think sets our PvP apart is the scale of it.
Does that create a lot of design headaches for you, having that many things moving about on the screen?
I would not say they're headaches. I would say they are exciting challenges. I mean, that's 200 people is 200 people that I can hit, right? And the more people that are on the screen, the more opportunity there is for me to control the battlefield, the importance of space, positioning, working with my teammates, mini squads, right? Like, there's just a whole lot of sort of social tactics that evolve when you get to that scale that, like, yeah, if you have 4 people playing together, like, there's a few things you can do. I'll cover you, I'll cover that. When you get to that scale, we're going to do a diversion measure. 5 people are going to go hit this objective, right? Like, it really becomes a war front, which is, awesome.
Right on, yeah. Oh, ain't nothing wrong with that, and that was very diplomatically put, by the way. All right, so what about the players versus monsters sort of thing? Are we going to see battles on the same kinds of scale, or what are you imagining?
It certainly depends on the scenario. In dungeons and sort of group situations, the monsters definitely come at you in large numbers. But it sort of all stems from the very base case, from our base philosophy about the monsters, which is they behave like players. They teach you to fight, right, the way that a player would, right? Yeah, they have slightly different abilities, slightly different sort of actions, but generally speaking, right, they will spread out. A ranged guy will try to get away from you and then shoot you with slows, right, and you have to deal with that, and you have all these tools that you can use to deal with that. And if there's groups of them, they'll work together, right? The wizard guy, right, the wizard type monster will call for his friend to sort of throw oil down, and then he'll light it on fire, and you better get out of that oil before that happens. There's other examples of that too, right? A necromancer, if a buddy dies, he'll res him as a skeleton or as a sort of a zombie, and then you have to deal with that. So it's sort of like, we'll kill that guy first, right? And they really work together, and the more of them you get together, like with the dungeon scenario where there's really just a bunch of them, the more sort of that becomes a really complex, awesome thing to cope with.
What are some of the big challenges that you've faced, and what's something that you're particularly proud of that you've managed to smuggle in there?
Yeah, big challenges. I mean, I think it has to really do with what I talked about earlier, which is just pushing the fact that it's an MMO and that latency is a factor, and really still trying to get that action tactical feel. It's a hard problem. I would say, hitting that is good. I mean, and to answer the second question, the thing I'm really proud of is the synergy abilities. I feel really good about how those are coming together. Yeah. It's really created this sense, the monsters do it, they synergize against you, and the players do it as well. And you really get this cool, like, I am awesome by myself, but when I'm in a group of people and we start using our abilities and I start being able to do extra things because I have a friend with me, that really came together nicely, especially in large-scale battles like we really target for our PvP and our PvE experience.
Well, that's what being online is all about, really.